Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Ballabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavajagacharya Stokta Sata Shri Shriman's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Sharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavajagacharya Stokta Sata Shri Shriman's Divine Grace. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Gaudiya Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shyamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Maharani Ki Jai. Samveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 9, texts 27 and 28. And so I don't see the verse up on the screen there. Oh, it's going to be good. Okay. Okay. Atabi pretyam avikshya. Atabi pretyam avikshya. Brahmano madhusudanaha. Brahmano madhusudanaha. Vishana chetasamtena. Vishana chetasamtena. Kopa vyatikarambasa. Kopa vyatikarambasa. Lokasamstana vijnana. Lokasamstana vijnana. Atmana parikhidhyataha. Atmana parikhidhyataha. Tam agagadaya vacha. Tam agagadaya vacha. Kasmalam samayaniva. Kasmalam samayaniva. Atabi pretyam avikshya. Brahmano madhusudanaha. Vishana chetasamtena. Kopa vyatikarambasa. Lokasamstana vijnana. Atmana parikhidhyata. Tam ahagaraya vacha. Kasmalam samayamiva. Lokasamstana Vijnanam Atmana Parikidyataha Tamahagadaya Vacha Kashmalam Shamayaniva
Atabhipretamанвикшya Brahmano Madhusudhanaha Vishanna Chetasam Tena Alpavyati Karam Bhasa Loka Samsthana Vijnana Atmana Parikiryataha Tam aha gadhaya vacha Kashmalam shamayan iva
Athavipretamandikshya Brahmano Madhusudana Vishana Chetasam Tena Kalpavyatikaram Vasa Loka Samstana Vijnana Atmana Parikidyataha Tam Ahagadaya Vacha Kashmalam Shamayantiva Athavipretamandikshya Brahmano Madhusudanaha Vishana Chetasam Tena Kalpavyatikaram Vasa Loka Samsthana Vijnana Atmana Parikiryataha Tam Ahagadaya Vacha Kashmalam Shamayaniva.
Vaishnavis, anybody?
Athavipretamandikshya Brahmano Madhusudanaha Vishana Chetasam Tena Kalpavyatikaram Vasa Loka Samsthana Vijnana Atmana Parikiryataha Tam Ahagadaya Vacha Kashmalam Shamayantiva Athavipretamandikshya Brahmano Madhusudanaha Vishana Chetasam Tena Kalpavyatikaram Vasa Loka Samsthana Vijnana Atmana Parikiryataha Tam Ahagadaya Vacha Kashmalam Shamayantiva
Ata, thereupon, abhipretam, intention, anvikshya, observing, brahmanaha, of Brahma, Madhusudana, the killer of Madhu demon, Vishana, depressed, Chetasam, of the heart, Tena, by him, Kalpa, millennium, Vyatikara ambasa, devastating water, Loka samshtana, situation of the planetary system, Vijnane, in the science, Atmanaha, of himself. Parikidyata, sufficiently anxious. Tam, unto him. Aha, said. Agadhaya, deeply thoughtful. Vacha, by words. Kasmalam, impurities. Samayan, removing. Eva, like that. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. The Lord saw that Brahma was very anxious about the planning and construction of the different planetary systems and was depressed upon seeing the devastating water. He could understand the intention of Brahma, and thus he spoke in deep, thoughtful words, removing all the illusion that had arisen. Purport. The devastating water was so fearful that even Brahma was perturbed at its appearance and became very anxious about how to situate the different planetary systems in outer space to accommodate the different kinds of living entities, such as the human beings, those lower than human beings, and the superhuman beings. All the planets in the universe are situated according to the different grades of living entities under the influence of the modes of material nature. There are 3 modes of material nature, and when they are mixed with one another, they become 9. When the 9 are mixed, they become 81, and the 81 also become, they become 81, and the 81 also become mixed, and thus we ultimately do not know how the delusion increases and increases. Lord Brahma had to accommodate different places and situations for the requisite bodies of the conditioned souls. The task was meant only for Brahma, and no one in the universe can even understand how difficult it was. But by the grace of the Lord, Brahma was able to execute the tremendous task so perfectly that everyone is amazed to see the workmanship of the Vidhata, or the regulator. Om Gyanatimirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshurdamilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakaramayam Dadati Swaparatikam. So the phrase that really caught my attention in this purport was this one, Prabhupada says here. When the 9 are mixed, they become 81, and the 81 also become mixed. And thus we ultimately do not, this is it, and ultimately we do not know how the delusion increases and increases. How the delusion increases and increases. So Krishna mentions about that word. Well, first of all, I'll give you a dictionary definition of the word delusion. That's I think that would be helpful. It's always helpful to hear, have a crisp, clear understanding of what these words mean. Okay. Delusion is a false belief or judgment about the external reality held despite incontrovertible, and that's underlined, incontrovertible evidence to the contrary. That's one definition. And another one is, a delusion is an unshakable belief in something that's untrue. That the belief isn't part of the person's culture or subculture, and almost everyone knows the belief to be false. Unshakable belief in something that's untrue. Okay, so that's a delusion. And Krishna mentions himself about delusion in the Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter. Tribir Gunamayar Bhavar Ebi Sarvam Idam Jagat Mohitam Nabijanati Mamebhya Paramavyam. He says, deluded by the 3 modes of material nature, this entire world doesn't know me, who am beyond these modes and inexhaustible. And in the purport to that verse, no, we're not going to have the purport to that verse. But Prabhupada says that they're so enamored by the modes of material nature that they fail to see that in the background is the material nature is the background of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We got it the other way around. We're thinking that this is the foreground. This is the background. There's what's on center stage really is supposed to be Krishna. It's just like, here's an example. Imagine you're the father of a big family, okay, and you hire somebody, That's like Brahma. You say, hey, I got all my kids, I gotta keep them occupied, I want you to design a theme park. And this theme park has to, kind of keep them all, something for everybody, okay? Well, that's a tall order, That's why Brahma he's got a tall order here. He's got to come up with a theme park that entertains all the different living entities, got all these different desires all over the place. And it's got to be designed in such a way that the ultimate thing that they can come away with, if they so desire, with the understanding that what's more important than the theme park is their Father, who's created the whole theme park for them, for their entertainment and enjoyment. But ultimately, their real happiness lies in connecting with Him, and not with being out in the theme park and getting all absorbed in that. You see, so that's what's supposed to happen here in this material world. The penny's supposed to drop at some point, and the living entity is supposed to understand that actually my real happiness lies not in trying to enjoy in this way, that way, this way, that way, this body, that body, millions and millions of different bodies, but to reconnect with Krishna, who's our original, that's our original constitutional position as eternal servants of Krishna. So we have to reconnect with Him. And a big part of that delusion is we're totally identifying with this body as who we really are. This is a virtual reality, just like in the example of the theme. It's a virtual reality, right? This material world, this material body is not who we really are. It really isn't. And this material world is not really our actual place. We're imprisoned, we're captives in a virtual reality. And we don't even realize it. When people are in prison, they kind of realize it. I know, I'm in prison. I'm a criminal, I'm in prison. But we're in a prison, we're imprisoned in these bodies, in this material world, and we think this is cool. We think that, hey, this is my place, But no, we're in a virtual reality. And so that, all the Vedic literatures are telling us that. Wake up, Jeev Jago, so many other verses, say that, hey, this is the time, human form of life now. Atato Brahma Gigyasa, wake up, understand, this is a virtual reality. You're not the body, this is not your world, But people somehow or another, people manage to ignore all that. and as time goes on, they're progressively becoming more and more expert at ignoring the Vedic, teachings like that. But aside from that, it's not just like, okay, you guys, a bunch of religious fanatics, you guys are just like Bible thumpers, you're Veda thumpers, And you just, no, but there's evidence to support this. And I'll read you something very interesting. Not too far from here, Virginia is not too far from here, right? Just a couple states up. Okay, so there's at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville, Virginia, there's a department, it's called the Department of Perceptual Studies. And this is something about them. They say, on their website, they have a little section, who we are. Okay, it says, current mainstream science and philosophy portray mind, personality, and consciousness as nothing more than byproducts of brain activity. It's something that happens at a mature stage of biochemical development. Okay, so that's modern, current mainstream science. That's their understanding. Nothing more than byproducts of brain activity. DOPS, or the Department of Perceptual Studies, strives to challenge this entrenched view by rigorously evaluating empirical evidence that suggests that consciousness survives death, and the mind is distinct, separable from the brain. And there's many different categories that evidence takes. Children remember their past lives, near-death out-of-body experiences. They've been studying it in a very scientific way. These are not like, Hindus or Buddhists. These are scientists. These are guys that actually, almost despite themselves, are having to acknowledge that, well, it seems like the evidence really, best points to that, where this consciousness is something separate from the body. And these kids really are having, the best explanation for this phenomena is reincarnation. So there's evidence, there's evidence. And let me see if anything more to read. Oh yeah, it says, and we are not alone. Growing numbers of people are becoming convinced that the prevailing physicalist view is fundamentally flawed. Physicalist worldview means that, matter is the origin of everything. Matter is the ultimate basis of reality, and everything is evolving. We've evolved up from matter, see? And at some point, consciousness, different steps, and consciousness emerged, or appeared on the scene. That's their worldview. But we're the opposite. Everything has devolved from consciousness. We're consciousness that have been implanted in matter. So it's totally different. This matter is the basis of reality. We're consciousness, pure consciousness, and we've somehow or another been implanted within matter due to misuse of free will. But it goes on. So the prevailing physicalist view is fundamentally flawed, and research needs to be extended in directions that will accommodate genuine, extraordinary experiences without loss of scientific integrity. So I don't know for sure, but when I hear that, I think they're referring to you sit the person down, you put all these things on their head, and they measure their. I don't know what they're talking about when they say experiments, but Bhakti Yoga. That's the experiment. We got the experiment. They're looking for an experiment. What do they say here? They want to extend their research in directions that will accommodate genuine, extraordinary experiences without loss of scientific integrity. We have the experiment here. Everything's, the blueprints are there. The books, the Vedas, all the Vedic knowledge, and you just got to plug in and do it. You got to plug in and do what the books say, what the acharyas say. This is the experiment, and if we really perform the experiment very seriously, very sincerely, then you get pratyakshavagamam dharmyam sushukam kartam aviyam. You get direct perception of the self by realization. You see, it's not like theoretical. At some point, it starts off theoretical, right? You just we accept in good faith. Okay, the book Prabhupada's saying this, and the Acharya said this, and the Vedas say this, and all right, let me give it a go. And you practice. But at some point, if we really, as I said, plug in sincerely, then it can become, something beyond just theoretical knowledge, realization. And, but, we really have to surrender. We really have to surrender. I had an interesting experience back a few weeks ago. I don't know exactly how it happened, but on March 30th, just this year, I got up really early, not intentionally. I probably had to go to the bathroom or something like that, and I felt I wouldn't be able to go back to sleep. It was like just maybe 1 o'clock or something like that. So I thought, okay, I'll just stay up and chant. So I just started chanting. I had about 32 rounds done before Mangal Arati because it's quite a long period of time there, 3 or 4 hours. And then the rest of the day went by, and then after the Sunday feast, I thought, well, a lot of times I go for a walk, but I thought, I'll just chant a bit more. So I just started chanting a bit more, and I chanted 64 rounds. Okay, then the next day, same sort of thing happened. I just woke up early, felt like I wouldn't be able to go back. Anyway, I started chanting 64 rounds. I was chanting a bunch of rounds before Mangal Arati, and then I was chanting like driving out to Sankirtan, driving back. Sometimes to finish them, after I got back and took a shower, I had to chant it for another hour or so more, but I was getting them done. And a couple of days I even went beyond that. Ram Navami came in that period. And I experienced that, at least when in the temple room, during the kirtans, I was really experiencing like a higher taste for the chanting. It was like, whoa, and I was chanting loud because I was enjoying it. I was trying to get the, max out here. Let me really get as much out. And I was looking around. I was thinking, is everybody else experiencing this too? Nobody else seemed to be, showing any signs of. And are they aware that I'm experiencing? I don't know. Anyway, but it was really, and I was at the same time I was experiencing it, but I was just thinking like an ordinary person. I was thinking, yep, this is proof. Yep, I can't deny this. I'm chanting, and this is like not ordinary sound. I mean, I'm experiencing pleasure. I'm experiencing pleasure doing this chanting, and other stuff was there too, but it was kind of fading into the background. The normal material thoughts were there. They didn't go away, but they were less important. They just kind of faded back. And remind me of that analogy Prabhupada gives of the coconut. You know, the coconut, as it matures, it kind of separates from the inner part separates from the outer part. And I felt like that was I felt like I was, in some way, experiencing I was not the body. Because, I was in, but I was in the body. I was something other than just the body. I mean, it was there and it was doing its thing, but I was simultaneously aware of a reality that had nothing to do with my mind or my body, if that makes sense. Yeah. So that was good. And so that's what we have to do. And and actually that's Krishna's recommendation. The next verse after that verse, Tribir Gunamaya Bhavaya, the next verse is Daivahi Esha Gunamaya Mama Maya Dirachya. That's Krishna's recommendation of how to get out of this, bodily concept of life, or how to become free from the influence of Maya. And Krishna says, I'll just quote the verse, it says, this divine energy of mind consisting of the three modes of material nature, which are deluding the hell out of everybody, right, are, very, Dirachaya, which are very difficult to overcome. Impossible, practically speaking. But he says, but one who surrenders unto me can easily cross beyond it. And, that surrendering is engaging in devotional service, wholeheartedly, sincerely trying to engage in devotional service. So that's there. And okay, now relating it to today's verse a little bit more. So Brahma is in this situation where he's, first of all, Brahma is a very qualified person. He's very capable. He, just to give you an idea, Indra, he's a big name among demigods, right? Okay. But if I'm remembering correctly, Indra lives for like one manvantar. And that's about 300 million years, okay? That's chicken feed compared to the life of Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma lives for 311 trillion, 40 billion years. I don't think there's any demigod or any other being in the material world that even comes close to that. I think I remember reading in the second canto that the people on his planet, they live for maybe they get up into the trillions, I'm not sure, but low trillion. But, Lord Brahma is head and shoulders above any other jiva in the material world. Head and shoulders. He's immensely qualified, intelligent, but he's bewildered here. He's perturbed. It's being described. He's in anxiety. So, and basically, it's the same thing. Krishna comes. I'm not going to spoil it for the next person who's giving class, but Krishna comes and tells, hey, it's okay, chill out. Just take shelter of me. Just take shelter of me. Notice he has to go, in order for Brahma to do his service, he has to get the mercy of Krishna. He has to go beyond his destiny, his modes of material nature. As great as they are, as powerful and as intelligent as he is, it's still not enough to deal with this, situation he's got here. So, and Krishna tells him, just don't worry, it's okay. You just take shelter of me, and it's going to be okay. And that's repeatedly the theme throughout, all the Bhagavat literature. In the where is it? 1857. There's that verse, Mach Chitta Sarva Durgani Mat Prasada Tadishati Atat Chet Tam Aham Karam Nashroshashi Vanakshasi. Krishna says, if you become conscious of me, then you pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. Right? Bhagavad Gita, 1857. Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a verse by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, says, Katanchana Smrite Yasmin Duskaram Sukaram Bhavet Vishmrite Viparitam Syat Sri Chaitanyam Namamitam. He says things that are very difficult to do become easy to execute if one somehow or other simply remembers Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But if one does not remember him, even easy things become very difficult. To this Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I offer my respectful obeisances. See, it's grace. We got to come to that platform of grace in order to successfully do our service, right? We're being asked to do something that's kind of, well, at least to my way, as difficult as what Lord Brahma had to do. It's difficult enough to become Krishna conscious. That's quite a challenge, to become Krishna conscious, to be, really become a pure devotee. That's like hard. What to speak of helping these other people become devotees? They're so much like just absorbed in, this delusion, that, the modes of material nature. So, in order to successfully be an empowered preacher of Krishna consciousness, we really got to get the mercy. I mean, like Mahatsa, he's a very good salesman. He's got it by nature, okay? He's got the karma, but he's got to go beyond that. You got to go beyond any material ability that we have in order to be an empowered preacher of Krishna consciousness, not something you could do with a material ability, right? So, and that's explained very nicely here. There's a verse earlier in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Says, I won't do the Bengali, but it says, by remembering the lotus feet of the Panchatattva, a dumb man can become a poet, a lame man can cross mountains, and a blind man can see stars in the sky. And Prabhupada says in the purport, I'll read it, it's very short. It says, in Vaishnava philosophy there are 3 ways for perfection, namely sadhana siddha, perfection attained by executing devotional service according to the rules and regulations, nitya siddha, eternal perfection attained by never forgetting Krishna at any time, and kripa siddha, perfection attained by the mercy of the spiritual master or another Vaishnava. Kaviraj Goswami here stresses kripa siddha, perfection by the mercy of superior authorities. The mercy does not depend on the qualification of a devotee, but by such mercy, here comes, even a devotee is dumb, he can speak to write, to glorify the Lord splendidly. Even if lame, he can cross mountains. Even if blind, he can see stars in the sky. See, so, yeah, by the mercy of the spiritual master, the acharyas, like that, higher authorities, you can go just way beyond what you could, ordinarily could do. And of course, we have to practice. The way it works is that Prabhupada said, I think it's in the Nectar of Devotion, and he definitely said it, don't expect an honorary degree. You can't sit waiting for an honorary degree. In the meantime, we should, practice, perform sadhana, and really try, as sincerely as possible to advance. But ultimately, we got to get the mercy. Get mercy of the spiritual master, the mercy of the predecessor acharyas. And you might think, well, yeah, but, it's so hard and so on. No, I mean, I'm going to read an excerpt from a lecture Prabhupada gave in Los Angeles, 1973. He was lecturing on the teachings of Queen Kunti, but somehow or another, at some point in the lecture, he just went off, not on a tangent, but he just kind of referred to something else to make a point. Anyway, I'm going to read a little bit more than the exact point I want to make, but it's about Lord Chaitanya, so everybody could just relish hearing a little something about Lord Chaitanya. And then when I get to the point, I'll tell you, okay, here it is. Okay, so this is an excerpt from that lecture. Prabhupada says, just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was only 24 years old. A lovable wife, beautiful wife, very, very serving, mother, so affectionate. But he gave up everything, took sannyas. So much honor. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was a grihasta, he was so much honored that only by the direction of his finger, lakhs of people would immediately join him as he started the civil disobedience movement against Kazi. So his position was very respectable in Nadia. Young man, beautiful, his body. Nobody can compare with his beautiful body. Young wife, faithful wife, beautiful wife, mother, affectionate. Position, everything. But he gave up everything, vairagya. This is called vairagya, renouncement. If somebody has nothing to possess, if he says, I have renounced everything, what is the meaning of renouncement? If you have something, then you renounce, then there is meaning. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's renouncement is unique. Nobody can give up such happy home, his honor, his position, his affection from mother, wife, friends, students, everywhere. Advaita Prabhu, although he was his father's age, he was honoring Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Still, he gave up everything. Why? Just to teach us. Apani Achari Prabhu Jivera Sikshaya. He is teaching the whole world how one has to become detached. That is his personal teaching. How one can become devotee of Krishna. He's personally teaching. That was detected by Rupa Goswami. Therefore, when he first saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then Prabhupada corrects himself, says, not first, second time. After resigning his post as minister, when he met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Prayag, he offered his obeisances falling flat. Namo Mahavadanyaya. He first addressed, most magnanimous, Most magnanimous. The word actually, if you look up dictionary edition of magnanimous, it means generous and forgiving. And forgiving is underlined, forgiving. So Lord Chaitanya is the most forgiving avatar incarnation. Goes on. Most magnanimous. Namo Mahavadnaya Krishna Prema Pradayate. You are distributing love of Krishna. Krishna Prema Pradayate. Then Prabhupada goes, love of Krishna is not a very easy thing. By love, you can purchase Krishna. So love of Krishna is not an easy thing to obtain. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu distributed this love of Krishna to anyone, to everyone, even to Jagai Madai. So Narottam Das Thakur therefore has sung in his song, Papi Tapi Jate Chilo Harinama Udharilo Tada Sakshi Jagai Madai. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is so magnanimous that he delivered all kinds of sinful men, Jate Chilo, and simply allowing them to chant the Hare Krishna mantra, delivered. Tada Sakshi Jagai and Madai. Papa goes, and now we're getting to the part. Now, at that time, there was only 2 Jagai and Madais. But at the present moment, by the grace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his process of teaching, how many Jagais and Madais are being delivered? So it is possible, is the point. So it is possible, it goes on to say, if Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is pleased, then he can give Krishna prema, love of Krishna, to anyone. Doesn't matter what is his qualification or disqualification, right? Doesn't matter what is his disqualification. Oh, yeah. He gives. If a person is giving in charity, he can select any man. You take. That is the power of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he goes on to say that otherwise it's a very difficult job. I'll read it. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschit yadati siddhi. Prabhupada says, out of many millions of people, they are trying to make life successful. Nobody knows. They are simply working like animals. They're in, as we read here, delusion. They do not know how to make the human life successful. What to speak of are they trying to do it? Human life is successful when he understands Krishna. Otherwise, he remains an animal. So from a Vedic perspective, according to the Vedic criterion, animals. The people we're meeting, the animals. Dvi parapasu is the expression. That's all. Anyone who is not Krishna conscious, who does not know what is Krishna, he's no better than an animal. So he's not exactly an animal, but he's no better than an animal. Okay? Correct me. Prabhupada goes into the next sentence. He's animal. So this is going on. And then he finally says, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave this concession to the fallen souls of this age that you simply chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. You'll be delivered. Kirtana Deva Krishna Sha Mukta Sangha Padam Vrajet. That is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's special concession. So, yeah, it's not like it's impossible. It's possible. It's possible. But if we please Lord Chaitanya, then he can give us, despite our disqualification. And a very important instruction of Lord Chaitanya is Yade Deke Tade Kaha Krishna Upadesh Amada Agyaya Guruhana Tada Edash. That wherever you go, whoever you meet, tell them about Krishna. It's such a perfect system. The Krishna conscious movement is just like perfectly designed. One of the most important things we have to do to please Lord Chaitanya, advance in devotional service, is go out and preach. So in other words, it's all auspicious. It helps us, and simultaneously, we're doing the best thing we could do for ourselves by going out and preaching, and simultaneously, we're doing the best thing we could possibly do for these people, for the conditioned souls, giving them an opportunity to engage in devotional service. That's the best thing, right? That's the best thing that could possibly happen to them. They meet a devotee and they get a book, or they come in contact with the Harinam or get prasadam, and it's simultaneously very beneficial for us. So it's really amazing setup situation. So. There's different ways, of course, as I just mentioned, there's, the 3 main ways somebody gets prasadam, harinam, like that. Book distribution. This temple is very much focused on book distribution. So I wanted to, let me see how I'm doing for time, okay. I wanted to I brought this book. It was written by a godbrother of ours, Tranakarta, and it's called Oh Hare Krishna Airport. It's an amazing book. I mean, it's kind of, you got to read it. Actually, I'll read you what your spiritual master said. He was one of the devotees they asked to do a review, and he says, this is an all-American Hare Krishna story. with lots of wows in it. And that word sums up the whole book. Wow. If you believe in Srila Prabhupada's transcendental book distribution, this book will make your hair stand in ecstasy. Every book distributor, he says, every book distributor, especially in the West, should read this, Bhakti Vikash Maharaj. So, yeah. So I'm going to read you, he very carefully selected some very nice quotes about book distribution from Srila Prabhupada. So I'll read those. Srila Prabhupada and book distribution. It is so very nice to hear how book distribution is going on. This is our main business, distributing these books all over the world, and this, thus turning the minds of the fallen souls towards Krishna. That was to letter to Sri Govinda, who was temple president in Chicago Temple at that time, January 31st, 1973. That's another one. There is no doubt about it. To distribute books is our most important activity. The temple is a place not for eating and sleeping, but as a base from which we send out our soldiers to fight with Maya. Fight with Maya means to drop thousands and millions of books into the lap of the conditioned souls. Just like during wartime, the bombs are raining from the sky like anything. That's from a letter to Rameswar, August 3rd, 1973. Regarding sales figures, please endeavor in this way. The sale figures, this is the only solace in my life. When I hear that my books are selling so nicely, I become energetic like a young man. Letter to Rameswar, September 1974. Regarding Sankirtan and book distribution is also chanting. Anyone who reads the books, that is also chanting and hearing. Why distinguish between chanting and book distribution? These books I have recorded and chanted, and they are transcribed. It is spoken kirtans. So, book distribution is also chanting. These are not ordinary books. It is recorded chanting. Anyone who reads, he is hearing. Book distribution must not be neglected. Letter to Rupanuga, October 19th, 1974. This book distribution is the Brihat Mridanga. It is the greater preaching. Ultimately, everyone should preach and distribute books if they want to please me in the best way. Book distribution must be given stress always. Letter to Sri Govinda, December 6, 1974. Just a couple more. Book distribution is our real business. If we give them a record, they will simply hear some magical sounds and take it for sense gratification. But if they receive one of our books and read even one page, they get eternally benefited. Therefore, I am stressing this book distribution, not other things. Letter to Ajita, January 6, 1975. They're in chronological order, by the way. So it's not like Prabhupada said something at one time and then it changed. You're hearing over a period like of 3 years, 4 years. Because thank you very much for your sincere endeavors to distribute my books widely. If you continue with such desire and determination, Krishna will give you all strength to increase more and more. Letter to Shrudev, January 16, 1975. Our first business is this book distribution. There is no need of any other business. If this book distribution is managed properly, pushed on with great enthusiasm and determination, and at the same time, if our men keep spiritually strong, then the whole world will become Krishna conscious. Letter to Satsrup, January 5th, 1976. So, I'll stop there. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Yeah, please.
Thank you. You're reading about multiples of numbers. So in Nectar about Krishna consciousness and Krishna lifted Govardhan Hill for 7 days. After that, he was very hungry. Chapan Bhog comes from these 7 days. How so? A day is divided into 8 praharas. So 8 times 7 days equals 56. So the Vrajbasis prepared 56 items or meals, one for each prahara. However, Krishna was still hungry. And that's at Anior, the village of Anior. So the multiples are also there in spiritual activity.
Oh,
Prabhu, you quoted this very nice verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita regarding how a very difficult task becomes easy for one who remembers Lord Chaitanya. One who forgets Lord Chaitanya, who doesn't remember him, even an easy task becomes difficult. Could you kindly elaborate the characteristics of a person who remembers Lord Chaitanya versus the characteristics of a person who does not remember?
yeah. You're following his instruction. That's what it really means to remember somebody. You know, it's kind of like, I say, well, I'm remembering my father, but I'm not doing anything he asked me to do. I'm not really remembering my father, you know. And remembering my father means that, you know, he gave me so many instructions throughout my life, my mother and my father. If I take them to heart, and then I'm remembering favorably my parents, not just that I remember them while I'm going out and doing exactly the opposite of what they wanted me to do. So in the same way, remembering Lord Chaitanya means taking his instructions to heart. With chanting Hare Krishna, that's a very basic, important instruction of Lord Chaitanya. Actually, beyond, I mentioned this in previous times when I was here. Back in the old days, and Prabhu would remember, we chanted, devotees walked around with their bead bags. You know, all day long you could see devotees with their hand in the bead bag, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. It wasn't just 16 rounds and that was it, you know. It was like, that was what you did when you weren't doing anything else. You're walking around chanting, you know. Yeah. It's quite common, chanting. And we used to chant Hare Krishna in between bites of prasadam. Hare Krishna, right? I did that until I went to Australia in 1970. At least for the first 5 years I was a devotee. That's because we were taught that in between bites, you know. So very important instruction, chant Hare Krishna. Kirtaniya Sada Hari. You know, it doesn't say Kirtaniya for just an hour or so in the morning and then the rest of the day just space out. No, Kirtaniya Sada Hari. So that's important. And then the other one I mentioned, Yada Deka Tare Kara Krishna Badesh. That's Lord Chaitanya's. And Prabhupada in classes, you know, in one Mayapur festival, I think 76, Prabhupada must have quoted that verse at least a half a dozen times, maybe more, you know, in a class. So it's a very important instruction of Lord Chaitanya that, you know, wherever you go, whoever you meet, tell them about Krishna. And it's amazing what can happen if you do that. I mean, you know, you guys are the greatest examples of that. You're meeting all sorts of people and you're telling them about Krishna. When I look at those pictures, that's one of the most, I tell you, whenever I'm feeling down, I go to my phone here, I go to WhatsApp, and I look up Krishna Life and I look at the pictures of the different types of people that are getting saptas and taking sets of Bhagavatams, and I go like, wow, this is for real, man. It just makes me, it's really faith enriching, you know, just to see those pictures, because I know what's behind it. So, you know, it's an amazing instruction. And I've been with Ram Das Prabhu, Ram Das Abhiram, and, you know, been in parking lots where I was thinking, like, forget it, this is like a useless waste of time. And, you know, 15 minutes later, he comes up to me smiling. I said, what's going on? What's up? He said, oh, I just did a set of bhakti. I said, what? Who'd you do it to? He said, some guy over there in the car. And I look at some old black guy, and you know, like 65 years old, just kind of sitting there like that. And, what? How did that happen? You know? But in other words, this is not a mundane activity. It's not an ordinary, it's not a material activity. You know, Sankirtana is a transcendental activity. And the more we surrender to it, the more you enter into the internal potency. Daivim prakritim ashrita. You get empowered. If you surrender to the whole, what to speak if you surrender to the whole process, you surrender to the morning programs, you know, chanting Sili, and then you go out, and a really important thing about Sankirtan is actually, last night, I was meeting with your Guru Maharaj over at that house, and at one point I asked him, I said, you know, because we were trying to get as much nectar from him as we possibly could. So at one point I asked him, I said, Maharaj, so what's your latest realization? And he just said, keep going, right? And I could really say, yeah, I could really relate to that, because especially on Sankirtan, you know, Krishna tests us. Krishna tests, and we just have to, you know, understand that's what's going on, not freak out, not get discouraged, just keep trying. And I've experienced this myself, and I'm sure all of you have that have done, you know, doing book distribution. Things can change like on a moment's notice, like from night to day. Yeah, from night to day. It's like night, and then you just make out this. I'm not giving up. That's it. I'm not giving up, and you keep going, and then Krishna is in the heart. He can understand it. Okay, that passed the test, and then just things change. Somebody comes along, and the same people, group, in the same place, same group that were ignoring you and not showing you. Somebody comes and says, "Oh, wow, this is so far out," and they take the books and they give a nice donation. They might take a whole set of Bhagavatams or whatever, and not only that, you feel blissful. So it's not just that the external result changes. You could say, "Oh, that's just, that's material energy," but no, I've had that experience where I'm feeling bummed out, and my results are horrible, both. But I just make that decision. I'm not giving up, and then Krishna at some point just goes, okay, I'm pleased. You passed the test, and then both the results change and what I'm experiencing changes. I remember one time very vividly, I was in American LAX, the airport in American, and it was like businessmen, and I felt like I was just knocking my head against the wall for about between 45 minutes and an hour and a half, and I got really discouraged, and I was actually decided to leave. But not totally. So I was on my way out, and then I was feeling bad about the whole thing. I was feeling like, I'm wimping out here, but anyway, it's too hard. And I saw some people coming in, and I said, well, I got to at least try these people. And I tried them, and they took the books and gave a nice donation. I said, well, I'm still going. And then I'm getting closer to the point of no return. When you go past the security the other way, then you got to do the whole trip again. So, and some other people came in, and I said, well, I got to try that. They look sweet. So I tried them, and they took the books, and they gave a good donation. I said, okay, well, I'm still going. And I went a little bit further, and then the third person, and so I said, oh, I'll try it. So stopped them. They took the books, and they gave a donation. And then I went, okay, Krishna, you win. Turned around, went back to where I was distributing, figuring, okay, I'll just tough it out for the rest of the day. But then everything changed, Even the businessmen, everybody just started taking books. And when I was chanting, I felt blissful. I was experiencing a higher taste. I was just chanting in between people, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. And the whole rest of the day was like, wow, far out. And I had a good day, did a lot of books, a lot of Lakshmi. But it started out disastrous. It started out like I was suffering, and nothing was happening. But just that one thing, that one ingredient, I just felt, okay, I got to, somehow or another, if I don't give up. And then Krishna made it all happen. So I don't even know what the question was, but how did I get it? Oh yeah, how do you really remember Lord Chaitanya? Just take the instruction to heart. Take the mission to heart, But Lord Chaitanya Prabhupada is non-different from Lord Chaitanya. If we take the instruction of our spiritual master to heart, you're remembering Lord Chaitanya. In a nutshell, take the instruction of your spiritual master to heart, and you're remembering Lord Chaitanya. That's the real remembering of Lord Chaitanya.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. At the beginning of the class, you gave a really nice, you gave 2 dictionary definitions for the word delusion, and in both of them seemed to be the idea of being determined to avoid the truth. One of them was like an unshakable something. The other one was determined despite good evidence. And then you described in Virginia here, they have, what was it called, DOPS or something?
Yeah.
So despite good evidence, why is it that we're so determined to be in illusion, to be in Maya? And what do we do for people who, like one thing my Guru Maharaj says is, you can't wake someone up who's pretending to be asleep. So what do we do for people who are, they're so determined despite good evidence?
What we're doing. What we're doing. There's nothing. We have no other program, right? I mean, we got the gold standard program here. Chanting, prasadam, book distribution, and we just have to try to make them fortunate. It's not easy, but that's. I mean, can anybody else think of anything else we could do beyond what we're doing? I don't know of anything else. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Also, circumstance change. Like I remember one devotee joined and he said, I used to throw stones at you guys. But then due to the influence of Lord Chaitanya, later on he became a devotee and shaved up. So in the beginning, he was totally demonic, but he changed. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Gopijana Bal. Were you referring to Gopijana Balda? There's probably more than one devotee in that fits that description.
I just remember it wasn't Gopi. It wasn't Gopi.
He used to. He told me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He was inimical to start off with, and then he just, he
Wow.
did an about face and became a real wonderful devotee. He was our temple president in Brooklyn there for a while, Henry Street Temple. But another thing your spiritual master says, he's quoting Prabhupada, by the way. Prabhupada said that about, what'd you say was it again?
Can't wake a sleeping man.
Yeah, you can wake up somebody that's sleeping, but you can't wake up somebody that's pretending to be asleep. But fan the spark. I've heard him say that in his lectures a few times. Yeah, if somebody just some little interest, some little spark there, it's our duty to try to do what we can to try to help them develop that into a full-on flame, as opposed to just getting extinguished altogether. So, but I think, the program is, here's one thought, okay, addressing your question. Say you have, here's a temple, okay? If this is all we had, do you think just, that the temple is open and we're doing our morning program and offering our food and like that, but we're not going out to meet any people, is that enough to spread Krishna consciousness? No. I agree, okay. Okay, say we have a temple and we're doing what I just said, and in addition to that, we're going out and meeting people, is that enough to spread Krishna consciousness? It's certainly more. It's certainly moving in the right direction, but I'm still feeling even that's not sufficient. We got to have a temple. You got to have like an association of the devotees, and you have to have the outreach. But then you have to. I'm feeling after 52 years of going out and just being like one of the foot soldiers, just meeting the people, and you got to be follow up. There's got to be follow up. There really has to be follow up. I've come to that conclusion. That. People, it's not enough to just be here. It's not enough to even meet people. I meet every day. I'm meeting people who are nice, but I don't follow up. I'm as guilty as anybody else. It should be. I think it's as important as either one of those two things. You got to contact the people who are already demonstrated that they're prepared to surrender. Come on. If somebody takes a set of Bhagavatams, when I see those pictures, I'm like, what? That's amazing. That's no ordinary person. Somebody who's prepared to fork out $300 and buy a set of Bhagavatams, and they never even heard of Krishna before in their whole life. There's people in that category, right? A lot of them are Indians and they know. But you're distributing sets of Bhagavatams, or even saptas, to people who don't know this from a bar of soap. And they're giving you, that's a substantial amount of Lakshmi. $60 or $300 if they take the whole set. They're not ordinary. There's something going on in there that they're ripe fruit, like your spiritual master uses that metaphor of ripe fruit. They're ripe fruit. So if somebody's demonstrating to us, hey, I'm a ripe fruit, and then our response shouldn't be, okay, well, sit down, stay on the tree there until you fall off and you become rotten. No, the ripe fruit needs to be picked. See, so when we locate the ripe fruit, right, which is what we're doing when we go out, and the people who take these saptas and Bhagavatams, they're ripe fruit. So when you locate the ripe fruit, then you got to pick it and bring it in. So I think that's lacking. I know it's lacking personally in my service. I don't follow up. I give people my phone number, but I never get it. It's the next step has to be maybe possibly be a good idea to have a person that's their service. Somebody who's like got the preaching spirit and is into it, and they could follow up on leads, contacts that many other devotees get. And their whole service is just contacting those people and saying, hi, so-and-so, how you doing? Hey, you don't know me, but you got some books from one of our members, blah, 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 and how you doing? Are you reading them, and you liking them, and you have any questions? Or you're chanting? Or, just be friendly with them, but Krishna conscious friendly, and just try to cultivate them. I think that's directly answering your question. I think that's super important. I think it's super necessary. And I think, be honest with you, I think ultimately everything's up to Krishna. By Krishna's mercy, anything could happen. Tons of people could all of a sudden just start coming. But logically, it seems to me that's something we've got to start doing seriously to expand this movement here, at least here in the West. We've got to follow up on these people who have demonstrate it, how much can we expect them to do? I mean, it's quite an amazing thing for somebody to take a stack of books from a stranger that they don't know anything about and give them $60 or $300 for a set of Bhagavatams. That's amazing, you know? And so these people need to be followed up on. Yeah. Anybody else? Anything? It doesn't, reflection, question, anything, whatever you want to, anything you feel inspired to say, go for it.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yeah. Hare Krishna. I was just wondering, I got the good fortune to go with you on books for a little bit. Can you share, I mean, like, by the time I would get stacks of books and come back, you already finished those books. How were you able to distribute so fast? I mean, we was in the mall, and by the time I could go back and come back, you're like, and there was like books just flying out. Can you share? And like these people, like, they wasn't complaining or anything like that. They're just taking books, just randomly. We even passed the door. And I go to that mall all the time, and it wasn't, I don't get that far and get that many books out.
Yeah, but I don't sell sets of Bhagavatams to people in the laundromat. Yeah, no, I have a mantra, and you know, up until this sect thing started happening, pretty much like Navina Nirada, Harinamananda, you know, those of us who were from the old generation, we had a mantra. It's short and to the point, and you just work your mantra. You know, just there's a few things you say. Hey, that's what I call a hairstyle. You know, you work here, you're just shopping. All right, you qualify here. This is on meditation, helps to relieve stress. What's your name? Bill. Bill, I got to tell you, man, you look like a rock star. We're monks. We print these ourselves. People give a donation. Sometimes a lot of times I'll show them the picture, changing bodies, and I'll show them see how consciousness continues after the body. That's it. That's as much as I'll tell them about the book. And I do that because Prabhupada said, distribute the book on the merit of the book. So I feel like if I say something about the philosophy, I'm distributing the book on the merit of the book. But basically, it's sales. You know, it's kind of some sales technique, and then you ask for the donation. And we don't get mental because we know that it does work. And if it's not working on that person, too bad. What can we do? Next person, next person, next person. And then with practice, you get the mantra down. It's kind of very subtle. You know, how you say it, how you look at them, everything, every little thing. It's an art. Prabhupada said, learn the art of book distribution. So in art, you know, it's kind of like every little detail. But with practice, you get better at it, and you can feel how it's, you know. So that's how. I'm just doing the mantra, which I didn't make up myself. I learned these things from other book distributors. Practically nothing I do is original. I just picked up something from Vijay, something from Pagosh, something from, you know, Tripurari, something from this one, that one, and I just kind of packaged it, you know, so that it works for me, you know, and I just like that. And by Prabhupada, and you know, of course, you got to try to have a good sadhana and everything like that. If you expect to want to get the mercy, you know, you got to have a good morning program and all those kind of obvious things. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah.
One other thing I want to share was in the verse, it talked about the difficulty, I think, was that how Brahma had to do to create it, to make this, or you was mentioning it, for the living entity. And, you know, when we look at devotees, to just do what it is that they're doing, to just have appreciation for the things that they have to go through. And we don't know that because we don't get to see. So as Brahma is creating this whole thing, and is showing that, you know, there's difficulties in the back of it, in which he has to, that we're not seeing to create for all these living entities. So it was just like having appreciation there for like, I could have got it wrong, but I thought it was like showing appreciation for like what one is doing, especially in the Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, appreciation is being expressed here. In the purport, Prabhupada's expressing appreciation. The last sentence is, by the grace of the Lord, Brahma was able to execute the tremendous task so perfectly that everyone is amazed to see the workmanship of the Vedanta, or the regulator. So, Prabhupada, and the purport of the next verse, as I said, I don't want to spoil it for the person who's giving class tomorrow, but he very nicely describes, let me see if I can find one sentence. Of course, the person entrusted with such a responsibility should always be aware of his incapability and must always look for the mercy of the Lord for the successful execution of his duty. One should not be puffed up because he is entrusted with certain executive work. So in other words, he gives the credit. But Brahma, he's Prabhupada's glorifying his service, but not that he's so, it's not like personal ability, but his outstanding quality was that in addition to all his amazing personal abilities was he surrendered, he took shelter, and he became even more empowered, even more amazing, and that's being acknowledged here too. It's not, Prabhupada's not acknowledging him to the exclusion of the grace of Krishna. He's acknowledging him with the inclusion of that concept, of the idea that, he got Krishna's mercy. He did it, he had great ability like Arjuna, and he had great ability, but without Krishna's mercy, he couldn't have pulled it off. So in the same way, whatever ability or lack of ability we have, we need Krishna's mercy to really, have the whole thing work out successfully. Okay. Yeah.
Prabhu, you're talking about fanning the spark, and there's an art to fanning a spark. If you're starting a fire, how if you put, if you don't do enough air, then it won't catch. But then if you get super enthusiastic and you do too much air, then it'll just extinguish it. So it's really an art of fanning a spark. And for those who have cultivated devotees, which I have not, that's definitely an art in itself, a difficult one. And defending the spark. And there's so many people that come to the temple, and so rarely that spark really catches. But those that do catch, it's often really unexpected. And those that don't, someone maybe you think is a great candidate for becoming the next brahmachari is, completely does not become that brahmachari. But then someone who is not expected becomes that person. And Prabhupada, I was listening to a conversation, and one of his disciples asked him a question. He asked it in some kind of complicated way, but more or less he was asking Prabhupada, will my material body become eternal? And Prabhupada just said, he didn't smash him, that's such a dumb question, why would you ask that? But he said, no, your body's going to perish. And he dealt with the person he dealt with his disciple in a very friendly way. And similarly, people come here and they have so many crazy ideas, and I just have the instinct to just oh my God, this guy's dumb. So I just forget about him. But, because you've been in Krishna consciousness for so long, I wanted to ask you if you see any commonality between everybody that does join, because obviously, a lot of us, myself included, wouldn't have thought would become a practitioner. So is there any commonality you see in the people that become devotees?
Well, they appreciate the philosophy. It's hard. I don't know. I want to give you a good answer, but nothing's really jumping. Let me think about that. Okay, but I'll say something about something else. In terms of fanning the spark, it's like anything else. Practice makes perfect. We have to decide to try to do it. I remember once I was talking with Mahatsa, and I can't remember what the conversation was, but he made a comment. How people say something sticks in your mind. He said, nobody taught me book distribution, right? He told me that. Nobody taught me book distribution. He kind of went out there, he had a sincere desire, and he just kind of figured out how to do it, how to crack it, Krishna gave him intelligence. Tesham sata diyuktanam bhajatam prativorpakam tadamu buddhi yogam tam yenamam. Those who are constantly devoted and really try, Krishna gives them the intelligence how to do their service. That's what it means, intelligence how to come to me, intelligence how to do your service. So if we're really sincere and serious about, trying to do something as a service for Krishna, and when Krishna sees that, he gives us from within. He reveals to us how to do it. So It's like that for anything, any service in Krishna consciousness. And this is a service, cultivating people. We got to try. If we try with everybody, and as you pointed out, you never know. Somebody who you think looks like a really good candidate, and they're not interested. Somebody who looks like, forget it, this person's hopeless, and then they take to it. So we got to, just like on Sankirtan, you just approach everybody. You never know. You just don't know who's going to be receptive and who's not. So we just practice the service. Figure out an approach, and then keep trying it. And Krishna will give you the intelligence from within, how to tweak it, refine it, so that you're not wasting time, or you're saying things or doing things that are more effective. He'll give us the intelligence how to become good at that. Just like he gives you the intelligence how to become at book distribution, how to become good at cooking, how to become good at managing, how to become good at dressing the deities. If we try, he'll give us the intelligence how to become good at fanning the spark. Helping these people who, at least have come, showing up and are in our presence like that. Yeah, I can't think of anything. Anybody else wanted the other part of his question, what they have in common? I don't know. I can't, nothing's popping in my mind, but yeah.
Well, one was just because you asked devotees, why did you come? And some say, oh, prasadam. I love the prasadam. The prasadam brought me. And then, of course, like Krishna says, Chaturvadhava Jantiyam, there's 4 types. So the thing is prasadam, others says philosophy. And then others just said the chanting. Each individual had their own inspiration. So it's like that. That's why there's such a variegated amount of presentation in Krishna consciousness, because something's going to attract somebody. It's different for everybody. Sometimes it's the same. It'll be like prasadam and the philosophy. Sometimes some just prasadam. Some say just philosophy. So, and then some of them say, well, I actually came to go look at the girls. No. Yeah. He said, but then I became serious, and then, so it happens. They come for different reasons. So.
Yeah. Okay, I got something. I thought something. Yeah, myself, I got books to start off with from devotees. I just bumped into here, there, and everywhere, Port Authority bus station, and getting ready to go into the subway and so forth. So that was there, and I remember I got a teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and I was reading it, and I was thinking to myself, man, I don't even know if I'm understanding this, but I sure am liking it. In other words, Prabhupada's purity just was coming through. That's how I analyze it. That despite the fact that intellectually I didn't even know if I'm understanding this stuff, but something was hitting me, Prabhupada's words. And I remember feeling like that with the small books too. I just feel like, wow, something about this I like, Prabhupada's purity. Purity is the force, so that was there. Then I came to the temple, and prasadam, of course. But another thing that really helped me a lot, the kindness of different devotees. There was a devotee there that, Brajendra Nandana. Do you know Brajendra Nandana? Yeah. He was just so nice to me. He went above and beyond the call of duty to just, be nice to me that evening, the first time I went for the Sunday feast. And also Mother Daiva Shakti. Oh, yeah. They were just so kind, and they made me feel like, yeah, okay, I'll be welcome there. They like me. These people like me. And they, so I went back the next morning. I got teachings of Lord Chaitanya on a Friday afternoon. It kept mentioning Srimad Bhagavatam in it, so I just said, well, I got to get a Srimad Bhagavatam. I didn't know where to go. There was no address in the book. So I just went back to the same subway station, 59th Street and Lexington Avenue. And sure enough, I met another devotee, different devotee. He was going into the train, I was coming out, and he handed me a rose, a long stem rose, and he said, hey, can you give a donation? I said, yeah, sure. I gave him a couple of bucks. I said, but, do you have any of those Srimad Bhagavatams?
Whoa.
And he went, yeah.
I would have freaking gone to ecstasy.
And then, he kind of, I gave him $30. I said, how many can you give me for $30? He said, 3 of them. And he gave me all 3, but then he took back 2. And said, come to the feast tomorrow, I'll give you the other 2.
That's how you do it.
He gave a good reason. He said, this is all I have, so I need them for other people. I said, okay, sure. So when I got there the next day, for the Sunday feast, I remembered I was impressed by Vishnu John Swami was leading the kirtan. Oh, yeah. I was trying to get into that, I saw the devotees were into it like anything. They were really, I was impressed by how bright-faced the devotees looked and how much energy they had, and I liked the kirtan. And then Kirtananda Maharaj gave the class, And I remember at one point in the class he said, you know, all the religions that are out there, they're all claiming that they're, you know, the best, they're the only one. And he said, but, you know, we don't do that. Bhagavatam doesn't do that. Bhagavatam offers a criterion by which you can judge for yourself. And then he quoted this verse from the first canto of the Bhagavatam, Savai Pumsam Paro Dharmo. And the way he translated it was, that religion is first class, which awakens in its followers unmotivated, ecstatic love for God. And when he said that, I went, yeah,
Dude.
that's it. That's it. That's the goal. That's what I want. That's, you know, that's what I'm after. Unmotivated, ecstatic love for God. And then that was thought one. Thought two was, okay, I'm doing this. You know, these people are intelligent enough to help me very clearly and easily understand the goal of life. You know, he just said it, and it like somebody flipped on a light switch. You know, and I said, okay, I'm doing this, but I didn't have a timeline. But you know, I just decided, okay, yeah, I'm going to do this. Then that was the end of the class, and we went up to the upstairs to take prasadam, and everybody was sitting on the floor like that, and I had a devotee on either side of me. And at that time, I was trying to follow what was called the Zen macrobiotic diet.
Oh, yeah.
George Oshawa, remember that?
Oh, yeah.
I was driving myself crazy. It was kind of like, it was very bland. It was, you know, brown rice and tamari soy sauce and some boiled steamed vegetables or something like that. And it was like, So I would do it very seriously for like 2 weeks, and then I just couldn't handle it anymore, and I'd binge out. You know, I feel so weak and stressed that I'd have to go into a store, and I'd start off by buying something like, you know, some dates and sour cream and then this and that, and I just, just eat so much until and then I'd lament for 2 or 3 days, and then go back and try it again. You know, Bhoga-Tyaga, total Bhoga-Tyaga, and it was driving me nuts. And so when I went to sat down for the feast, they started bringing around the preparations, and I was in the Tyaga cycle at that point, you know. And I was refusing most of the preps, you know, because they looked too opulent. They looked too good, you know, or whatever. Didn't look like it fit in with that diet. So the devotee was sits on one side of me. Chakri, do you know Chakri? Everybody here? Chakri.
St. Louis.
St. Louis, right, Chakri. He spent a lot of time in Chicago, too. So Chakri, you know, I'm first-time Sunday feast guest, and he starts getting on my case. He starts chastising me. What's your problem, man? This is Prashana. You know, you're an impersonalist, you're a Mayavadi. He was a new devotee. He'd only been in the temple like, you know, a couple months maybe, okay, plus or minus. And he was really just getting on my case, and I was like, whoa, I couldn't even get it out of my mouth. Hey, I'm here for the first time. So before I could say anything, the devotee who was on the other side, and his name was Indra Pramada, and he'd been in the temple. Yeah, Indra Pramada, right. He designed the covers to the Bhakti Godhead magazines for many years. Anyway, he had been a devotee for like, you know, 3 or 4 years, something like that already, or 2 or 3 at least. So he leaned over and he said to Chakri, he said, "Shut up."
Oh, yeah.
He said, "Shut up. You don't know how to preach." You know? And Chakri shut up, you know? And then he said, "So you don't like vegetarian food?" And I said, "Yeah, no, I'm a vegetarian." He said, "So what's it?" And I said, "Oh, I'm trying to follow this particular kind of diet," and blah, blah. And then he just started preaching to me about the philosophy of prasadam. He said, you know, this is vegetarian, but it's more than just vegetarian food. It's offered to Krishna, and with love and devotion. And when it's accepted, it takes on a spiritual quality. There's no material contamination. I can't remember exactly what he said, something along those lines. But I just accepted it. Because I probably read about prasadam in the books by that point anyway. So I just said, okay. If that's the case, okay. And then, they felt like really victorious. And then he goes, okay, serve it, it's gone. This guy changes his mind quicker. And they just started piling up my plate with prasadam. I ate so much that I couldn't move. I couldn't move. I had to sit there on the floor. I had to open my pants, the belt and everything. I was just sitting there. And then I saw the devotee who I gave the $30 to, and he gave me one, the Bhagavatams. And he introduced me to Mother Daiva Shakti. And then she was just so nice to me, And she gave me the books, and she gave me a poster of Krishna Balaram, the one it used to be on the cover of the Krishna book, where they're leaning on each other's shoulders. I think Bharadwaj did that. And Prabhupada liked that when he said that whoever has done this has seen Krishna, something like that. He really liked that. It was very real to life. Back in those days, a lot of the paintings looked very amateurish, but to this day, that when you look at that picture, you go, wow, those are the two most, actually that's good, but the one
not this one. It's another one.
It's different. It's the same.
Background.
Yeah, it's the same
Background.
scene, same thing. But he did a better job even than that.
It's in the Bhagavad.
And you just look at the facial features and everything. That's what I did, and I just went, wow. these are the two most beautiful people I've ever seen. When I got it home, I didn't open it up until I got it home. And she gave me a little 45 RPM record. And anyway, I don't tell the whole story because it's getting late. But yeah, that was it. And then I'll tell you a little bit more. When I got home, it was like 11 o'clock or something like that. I was marching around my room chanting Hare Krishna, the tune I heard in the kirtan. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, which Prabhupada liked. He liked that tune. He told Agnidev that Agnidev was leading with that tune, and Prabhupada kind of went, yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's beautiful. So I'm marching around chanting that, and then I hear a knock on the door. And it's my father, and he goes, Jeff, what are you doing? And I said, I'm just, went to this Hare Krishna temple. I'm just chanting this thing that He said, well, do you know what time it is? And I said, no. He said, well, it's like 11:30. Your mother and I are trying to get to sleep. Do you think you could, tone it down? I said, oh, yeah, sorry, Dad, no problem. So okay, well, so much, I got to stop the chanting. So then I said, okay, what else? That's when I opened up the poster and I saw the picture, and I went, wow, these are the two most beautiful people I've ever seen. I was really impressed by the picture. And then I put the 45 RPM on, and I played, the first side I played was the one, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari Govind, which I thought, okay, that's nice, I like that. Played it once. Then I played the other side, Govindam Adi Purusham. When I heard that, I just went, wow, what's this? And I felt, wow, I felt like transported into another realm listening to that. So I played it again. And each time I played it, I turned up the volume a little bit, not on purpose. I just inadvertently, because I wanted to get more into it, So I turned up the volume a little bit. I honestly might have played it a dozen times, I had the volume way up. And then finally, after the 12th time or whatever, and it was my father again, He said, what is your problem? What is your problem? I said, Dad, I'm so sorry. I just got carried away. He said, do you think you could, just quiet down now? He said, I said, yeah, don't worry. He said, well, I hope so. So he was really upset. So then that was it. So I said, okay, well, I guess I should go to sleep. And I thought I'd go to sleep, but then I thought, I'm so wired up. So I rang the temple. By now it's like midnight or past. So I rang the temple, and Brajendra Nandan answered the phone. They had one phone. It was in the shoe room, right? As you come in the one phone in the whole building, and so he was sleeping in the shoe room where the phone was. So he answered, and I said, hey, hi, Paul, and he remembered me, because we made friends when I was there, and so I said, I told him what I was experiencing, and I said, I think I want to come down and join. Can I come down? He said, well, he said the same thing as my father said. Do you know what time it is? And I said, well, it's late, right? And he said, yeah, it's like, it's almost 1 o'clock. And I said, well, what do you think? He said, well, why don't you go to sleep, and, when you, in the morning, just, after you had a good night's rest, come on down. We're not going to go anyplace. We'll be here. I realized from the way he responded, I guess I was all hyped up, So I said, okay, sure, that makes sense. So I went to sleep, but 1 o'clock, okay. But then I woke up at like 4 o'clock. And it was different than other days. It's just like somebody flipped on a light switch. I woke up after 3 hours, and I felt completely refreshed and awake. I was asleep, fast asleep, and the next second, boop, here I am, feeling, it's enough sleep, I felt good. And I got up, and I did something I didn't usually do. I got up and took a shower and put on clean clothes. But that wasn't my habit. I got up, took a shower, and put on clean clothes, and went to the subway and went down to the temple. And when I got down there, Brajendra Nandan was there. He immediately let me in. He handed me some beads, and he said, okay, now you chant on these beads, I'd already knew kind of what that was all about. And then after about 5 minutes, some devotees started coming up to him and saying, hey, you can't just let this guy in off the street like that. And he was trying to defend me, But they were kind of adamant that, this guy might be crazy. So they asked me if I could go out, do some service. I said, sure. So they gave me a broom, and they asked me to sweep the stairs outside or something like that. And I said, okay, no problem. So I went out and swept the stairs for about 5 minutes, and then they came out and said, come on, it's okay. But anyway, it goes on from there. But kindness of the devotees. That getting back to the actual point. Yeah, prasadam, the books, the chanting, but the kindness of the devotees really was a big factor in helping me become a devotee. So I'll stop there. Thank you very, very much.
Jai.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
His Grace Bhrgupati Prabhu ki jai.